It's 3:17 a.m. when the phone rings. I reach for the phone without thinking. Hello? There's silence at first, just breathing. Then a girl's voice. Young. Shaking. Please. I don't have anyone else. I need you to come. Now. The panic in her voice cut straight through me. I sit up, heart pounding. I think you've got the wrong. No, she says, quiet but firm. I chose the right one. Then she gives an address. And hangs up. I stare at the screen. Unknown number. No voicemail. My first instinct is to go back to sleep, forget it ever happened. People prank call mechanics sometimes. It's not new. But this doesn't feel like a prank. It feels like something snapped in her voice, like a wire under too much strain finally broke. I don't know why I move, but I do. I throw on jeans, boots, and the flannel that still smells like motor oil. My truck's parked outside, half frozen under a layer of spring frost. As I drive, the streets are empty, just fog, headlights, and the hum of thoughts I don't want to think. The address takes me across town. Not a great neighborhood. Peeling paint, busted porch lights, fences held together with duct tape and hope. I kill the engine and step out, heart loud in my chest. Apartment 3B. Third floor. No elevator. Stairs creaking like they're warning me. When I knock, I half expect no one to answer. But the door opens almost instantly. And there she is. Thin hoodie. Torn jeans. One eye bruised. 16, maybe. Could be anyone's kid, except she looks just like someone I used to know. For a second, I can't move. My brain doesn't connect the pieces. Then she says, "Hi, David." And my stomach turns to ice. No one's called me that in years. Not like that. She stares at me. Her eyes are the same shape as her mother's, but sharper, older. And that's when I realize who she is. The girl I left behind. The daughter I haven't seen in 15 years. Emma. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, taking in the mess behind her. Drawers pulled out, clothes on the floor, a cracked lamp on its side. She stepped back to let me in like she expected me to. Like this wasn't the first time she'd opened a door for someone who didn't deserve to be on the other side of it. I stepped into the apartment, careful not to brush against anything. The air smelled like old sweat and something sharper, bleach maybe, or cheap vodka. She shut the door behind us. No lock click. No safety. Sit if you want, she said, nodding toward the couch. One cushion had a knife slit down the middle. I stayed standing. How did you? I started, then stopped. Her eyes met mine like she was waiting for me to ask the real question. How did I find you? She said, voice flat. Letters. Mom wrote you every year. Never mailed them. After she died, I read them all. Last one had your garage's name in the corner. I searched the business license. Your name was on it. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to ask why she called. Why now? But the look on her face said don't waste time on that. Something was coming. Or maybe already had. You said you needed help, I said quietly. Are you in danger? She nodded once, quick and sharp. He'll come back soon. I didn't think he'd be home this early. Who? She hesitated. Then, Derek. My foster brother. 18, barely. Big enough to think he runs the place. He's not supposed to be living here anymore, but they don't check. Her voice caught, but she forced it steady. He gets mean when he drinks. Which is always. Tonight he got in my face. Called me a squatter. Told me to leave, or he'd make sure I stayed down this time. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. I looked around again. This place wasn't trashed from carelessness. It was a warning. Where's your foster mom? I asked. Works night shifts. Doesn't care. She gets a check. That's all that matters. I ran a hand down my face. The room was too small, the air too thick. I hadn't seen this girl since she was a toddler. She'd had this tiny voice that used to call me Dada when she couldn't say my full name. Now she spoke like someone twice her age, like she'd had to make herself older just to survive. You got a bag packed? I asked. Yeah, she said. Hidden in the closet. Just clothes and my mom's box. What box? Her stuff. Photos. Some letters. The bracelet she wore every day. I hesitated. You can come with me for tonight. Just until we figure something out. She didn't react right away. Just watched me like she was trying to decide if I was real. You don't owe me anything, she said quietly. You didn't come to court. You didn't write. I kept waiting for you to show up at school or for someone to say you were dead so I could stop wondering. I nodded. You're right. The words tasted like rust, but they were true. There was no version of this where I got to explain my way out of what I'd done. No redemption speech. I left her. Drunk, angry, convinced she was better off without a man who couldn't stay sober long enough to remember birthdays. She turned toward the closet, pulled out a small duffel. Her hands were steady. Too steady. When she passed me, her shoulder brushed mine and I flinched without meaning to. Not because I was afraid, but because I felt how small she still was under all that toughness. Like a kid who'd grown armor instead of trust. We made it to the stairwell just before the front door slammed open downstairs. A voice shouted up, slurred and hostile. "You little bitch. You take my cash." Emma froze. Her grip on the duffel tightened. I grabbed her hand. "Go. Now." We ran down the back stairs, footsteps loud, heartbeat louder. Out the rear exit, into the alley, past dumpsters and broken bottles. I unlocked my truck with shaking hands. She jumped in before I even opened my door. The engine roared as we peeled away. In the rear view, a figure burst out of the building, shouting something I couldn't hear. I didn't look back again. For 5 blocks, we didn't say a word. Then Emma whispered, "You believe me, right?" I glanced at her. She wasn't crying, just staring straight ahead like she was still braced for the next blow. "I believe you," I said. She leaned her head against the window. "Good. That's one more than I had yesterday." I wanted to say something helpful, something wise or comforting, but nothing came out. Because the truth is, I wasn't the hero she called. I was just the one who answered. And maybe that's all it takes to start undoing 15 years of silence. I kept driving until the street lights thinned out and the city began to blur into silence. We didn't have a destination, just distance. Emma sat still in the passenger seat, one leg tucked up under her, hands locked in her lap like she was afraid of leaving prints. I wanted to ask her if she was hungry, cold, anything, but the weight in the cab wasn't something that words could cut through yet. She finally spoke when we hit a red light near the edge of town. "He had a knife once. Not tonight, but before." I didn't look at her. I just gripped the wheel harder. "Did he use it?" "No," she said. "But he wanted me to think he would." I exhaled through my nose. It sounded like something close to a growl. She noticed. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she said quietly. "It's worse than saying nothing." I nodded. That one hit harder than she knew. The last time I saw her, she was in a car seat, screaming as her mother pulled her away. I'd been drunk the night before, missed the custody hearing, and didn't fight the decision. I told myself she'd be better off. I even believed it for a while. I pulled into the lot behind the shop. It wasn't much, but I had a cot in the back office, a bathroom, a heater that worked most nights, and a door that locked. She didn't ask where we were. She just followed me inside like she'd already made peace with landing somewhere temporary. "You can take the cot," I said, flipping the switch to light the place. The overhead bulbs hummed, flickering once before holding steady. I grabbed the only clean towel I had and handed it to her. "There's a space heater near the wall. Don't touch the thermostat. It's rigged weird." She walked around the room slowly, scanning the grease-stained walls and old calendars like she was trying to understand who I was now by what I lived with. Her eyes landed on the mini fridge. "You keep beer in there?" "Not anymore," I said. "It's been 4 years." She didn't say good job. She didn't say anything. Just opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle of water. After she settled onto the cot, I laid out a blanket on the floor with my jacket as a pillow. My back protested instantly. She watched me lie down but didn't object. "You really stayed away on purpose?" she asked suddenly. I didn't answer right away. I stared at the ceiling, paint peeling like old skin. I didn't think I had anything left to give. "You were my dad," she said. "I know. Then you had everything." I turned my head toward her, but her eyes were already closed. Not asleep, just done talking. Later that night, I woke up to the sound of her crying. Quiet. Measured. Like she'd learned how to do it without waking anyone. I stayed where I was. It felt wrong to interrupt grief that wasn't mine. I wanted to offer something to fix it or soften it, but I'd already used up all my chances to show up when it mattered. In the morning, she was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the cot with her mom's box in her lap. She held up a folded piece of paper. "You should read this," she said. It was her last letter, the one she never mailed. I took it, fingers unsteady. The paper was worn, the ink smudged in places. Her handwriting hadn't changed much since the last time I'd seen it on the back of an envelope. I started reading. "David, I don't know where you are. I don't even know if you'd care to read this. But Emma asks about you more now. She remembers your voice. That surprised me. I wish you had stayed. Not for me, for her. She's strong, but she shouldn't have to be. I want to hate you for leaving, but some part of me still thinks you're capable of coming back. I just don't know if it'll be in time to matter. There was more, but I stopped there. I folded it and handed it back. She wrote that 2 months before she died, Emma said. From pneumonia. They caught it too late. I didn't know. I figured. She got up and walked to the window, looking out at the gray morning light like it might offer a new start. Do you want to go to the police? I asked. We can report what he did. She shook her head. He'd find a way to spin it. They always believe the loudest person in the room. Then what do you want to do? She turned around. I want to disappear for a bit. Just not be found. I nodded. I can help with that. But only if you let me stick around this time. Her voice was flat. You still run when things get hard? I didn't answer. She took that as one. The first sign something was wrong came in the form of silence, too much of it. The kind that stretches across the day like a warning you don't recognize until it's already behind you. Emma had barely spoken since showing me the letter. She spent most of the afternoon sitting in the corner of the office, sorting through her mom's box with the care of someone cataloging a crime scene. I worked on a busted alternator just to have something to do with my hands, but I kept watching her reflection in the shop window. She didn't cry. She didn't fidget. She just moved slowly, like each motion had weight. She broke the silence around 5. There's a place I found online, she said. A shelter that doesn't ask questions. It's a few towns over. I was going to take a bus before everything went sideways. Do you still want to go? I asked. She shrugged. If it's not burned down by now, I can drive you. She didn't thank me. Just said, I figured. We left at dusk. She wore my old hoodie, sleeves past her hands, hood up. I grabbed a duffel, not that I had much to pack. Just enough to look like a man helping someone, not smuggling them. I didn't tell her, but I pulled some cash from the safe. Not a lot, but enough to get her through a couple weeks if she needed to bolt again. I also grabbed the wrench I kept under the front seat, just in case. The road out was quiet. Emma leaned against the window, staring at the sky like it had something to say. We hadn't even hit the highway when she spoke again. You ever go back? She asked. After you left? Once, I said. I parked across the street from your mom's building. I saw you through the window. You were drawing. She pulled the curtains before you noticed. Why didn't you come in? Because I was drunk. She nodded, like that explained everything. Maybe it did. We passed an empty rest stop a few miles later. Emma turned in her seat. You said you've been sober 4 years. I have. What made it stick? My liver stopped bouncing back. She smirked, just for a second. And that's what did it? No. What did it was waking up on the floor of my shop with blood on my mouth and no memory of why. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who would have walked past his own daughter on the street without recognizing her. That scared me more than dying did. She didn't respond, but something in her posture softened. Not trust. Not even forgiveness. Just the tiniest shift away from guarded. The shelter wasn't much. Just a 2-story building near a library, plain sign, warm yellow light in the window. I parked down the block. Emma didn't get out. What? I asked. She stared at the building. Someone followed us. My blood iced over. What? Back at the shop. There was a car parked across the street around noon. Same ones at the end of the block now. Green Impala. Cracked tail light. That's his. I looked where she pointed. Sure enough, half a block down, the same car she just described sat angled under a streetlight. No movement inside. Windows tinted. But it was running. Stay in the truck, I said. She grabbed my arm. No. If you go over there, he'll escalate. That's what he does. I started the engine. Then we don't give him a chance. I turned the wheel hard and pulled away from the curb. The Impala followed. Not close. Just enough to let us know we were being watched. Emma's breathing sped up, eyes locked on the side mirror. He doesn't just follow. He waits until you think he's gone, then he breaks in. Slashes stuff. Breaks your phone. Last time he cut all the wires in the house. How long's this been going on? Months. I stopped telling anyone because no one did anything. I kept driving until we reached a gas station on the edge of town. Bright lights. Security cameras. I parked near the entrance and turned to her. We go inside together. You stay where people can see you. I'll call someone. Who? I hesitated. A guy I trust. State trooper. Fixed his wife's car a few months ago. He owes me a favor. Inside, the cashier barely looked up. Emma drifted to the snack aisle while I stepped into the restroom and dialed. Ellis, came the voice. You don't usually call. I need help. Off the record. Just a check on a license plate. Possible harassment. Might turn into more. He paused. You in danger? Someone is. Text me the plate. I hung up. walked out, and met Emma by the cooler. She held 2 bottles of water and a pack of gum. "I don't want to run anymore," she said. "You won't," I replied. "Not alone." The moment held for a beat, maybe 2, until the doors swung open behind us. And he walked in. He didn't look around. He didn't need to. He saw her before the door had even shut behind him. Emma froze mid-step, the gum slipping from her fingers onto the tile. I turned as he moved toward us, 6 foot maybe, heavy boots, too thin hoodie pulled tight around his shoulders like it was part of his skin. His face was flushed and slick, eyes sharp but hollow. He looked older than 18 and younger than anything decent. "Hey there," he said, his voice too casual, too rehearsed. "You forgot something." Emma stepped behind me without speaking. I raised my hand, not high, not threatening, just enough to make him stop walking. "That's close enough," I said. He smiled like we were joking. "Who are you supposed to be?" "Someone you don't want to test." The cashier looked up then, finally catching the tension. She froze for a second, then picked up the phone. I hoped she was dialing someone. Derek's eyes flicked toward her, then back to us. "You think this changes anything? You think you can just take her like she's yours?" "She's not yours," I said. "And she's not property." He leaned his weight onto one foot, sizing me up. "You don't know what she's done. What she's like when she doesn't get her way. She lies. She steals. Emma's voice cut through his rant. "Say another word and I'll scream." It wasn't a threat. It was a guarantee. He hesitated. And in that pause, I stepped forward, closing the space he thought he controlled. "She called me because you made her feel trapped. She's not going back. Not with you. Not with anyone who turns their rage into a room." His jaw clenched. "This doesn't end here." "You're right," I said. "It ends with police. With files. With statements. You keep chasing her, and your face ends up on the news." That hit. Not because he was afraid of consequences, but because he was used to slipping through them. You could see it in the way his expression shifted, not guilt, just calculation. Behind us, the cashier cleared her throat. "They're on their way." Derek raised his hands like we were all being ridiculous. "Just trying to talk to my sister," he said. "She's not your sister," Emma said. "You stopped being that the first time you put your hand around my throat." The air went still. He didn't deny it. Didn't even blink. Just back toward the door, palms out. "I was just leaving." Then he turned and walked out. I followed to the window. He climbed into the Impala and pulled off slow, like he wanted us to see the plates, see the taillight, see him. He wasn't gone. He was biding time. The police arrived 10 minutes later. 2 officers, both polite but not too interested once they heard no one was hurt. They took our statements, said they'd file it, and gave us a card with a case number that might as well have been a receipt. "He'll be back," Emma said as we got into the truck. I didn't argue. She knew it. I knew it. We drove again, this time with no plan. Eventually, I pulled into a park-and-ride lot off the freeway. Empty at night, but lit enough to feel safe. I parked and killed the engine. She didn't ask why we stopped. "He thinks I'm bluffing," I said. "Because I didn't hit him. Because I didn't drag him outside." "That's what he's used to," she said. "Men who explode. Men who make a mess and walk away like someone else will clean it up." I looked at her. Really looked. There was nothing fragile left in her face. But that didn't mean she wasn't breakable. "You didn't ask for any of this," I said. "You didn't choose me. You didn't choose him. You didn't choose to carry the cost of other people's damage." She turned toward me slowly. "Then why do I still feel like it's mine to fix?" "Because it always lands that way," I thought. "On the ones who survive it." "Sometimes," I said, "you carry the fallout of someone else's collapse. It doesn't mean you caused it. It means you're the one strong enough to walk away with it still burning." She looked at the floor, then back out the window. "Mom used to say something like that. Not as poetic. Just, being tough doesn't mean you deserve the punch." I nodded. "Smart woman. She really believed you might come back someday." "I didn't." "I know. But she kept writing anyway. Said writing to you made her feel like she hadn't failed." I swallowed hard. "She didn't. She thought she did." I opened the glove box, pulled out the envelope with the cash, and a burner phone I'd grabbed that morning on instinct. I handed it to her. "I want to help you start over," I said. "Not run. Just reset. You get to decide what comes next." She stared at the phone. "And you?" "I'll deal with him. Legally. Loudly. Whatever it takes." She took the envelope slowly, like it might disappear if she blinked. "You really mean it?" "I've never meant anything more." She nodded once, sharp and small. "Then let's burn the blueprint." I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't have to. The cot was empty. The duffel was gone. No note. No sign of a struggle. Just the echo of her absence settling into the corners of the office like dust no one bothered to wipe. I'd only stepped out to grab coffee from the diner 2 blocks down. 10 minutes, maybe 12. I'd locked the door behind me. She must have used the back exit, the one that never quite latched right since the windstorm last winter. She'd waited until I was gone. Then she left. I checked my phone. No messages. The burner I'd given her was still powered off. I stood there, trying to convince myself she just went for air, but I knew. This wasn't a pause. This was an intentional disappearance. A calculated step off the grid. I searched the building anyway. Shop floor. Supply closet. Even the bathroom. Nothing. Just my own reflection in the mirror, looking older than I'd allowed myself to believe. I'd spent years walking through life like it owed me distance, no attachments, no guilt. But watching that reflection now, I saw it clear. I looked like a man who ran out of time and still kept showing up late. By noon, I was back in the truck, phone in my lap, debating calling the police again. I didn't. She hadn't vanished because she was in danger. She vanished because she didn't trust the world to protect her when it mattered, and maybe not me either. That part stung more than I expected. I drove. No real direction. Just road. Every street I passed carried a question I couldn't answer. Had she planned this the whole time? Was she giving up on me, or just protecting herself from needing anything I couldn't guarantee? I remembered what she said in the gas station lot. Let's burn the blueprint. I thought it meant starting over. But maybe she meant mine. The plan I was building for her. The one that made her a problem I could fix instead of a person I owed something real. I ended up parked outside her old middle school. The building was locked, but the playground out back hadn't changed. Same chip paint. Same bent slide. I sat on the curb and thought about a version of my life that never happened, the one where I stayed, where I picked her up from places like this, where I got to see her scab knees in class art projects, where I was someone she could count on, not someone she had to track down like a missing piece of herself. I pulled out my phone again. Still nothing. I didn't realize I was crying until a kid passed by on his bike and gave me a second look. I wiped my face, not embarrassed, just tired of pretending I could hold everything in without it spilling out. Eventually, I drove back to the shop. I kept the front door open, just in case she came back. I sat on the cot where she'd slept and picked through the remnants of her mother's box. There was a necklace tucked into the folds of an old birthday card, a charm shaped like a feather, probably worth nothing, but I held it like it could tell me what I'd done wrong. The burner phone buzzed just before sundown. One message. I had to go. This doesn't mean goodbye. I just need to feel like I'm choosing something. For once. I'll call when I can. Don't chase me. I read it twice. Then again. No location. No apology. Just truth. It was exactly how I would have worded it, back when I thought silence was the only way to avoid hurting the people who expected more than I could give. She wasn't running. She was reclaiming the right to move without permission. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then locked it and set it down beside me. Some part of me wanted to get angry. Not at her, at everything. At the years I lost. At the system that fed her to people like Derek. At myself for believing that showing up late was still better than not at all. But anger felt like another way to avoid the truth. She was out there. Not hiding. Not lost. Just living on her own terms. And maybe that's what scared me most, that she didn't need me to fix anything. She just needed to know I'd still be here if she ever looked back. I didn't go home that night. I didn't sleep either. I just sat in the back of the shop, light off, Emma's last message replaying in my head like it was trying to carve itself into the walls. Don't chase me. But I wasn't built to wait. Not anymore. Waiting was what I used to do when I thought time would solve things on its own. Now I knew better. Time doesn't fix anything. It just hides the damage under different names. By morning, I had a decision to make. I could do what she asked, stay put, wait for the phone to ring, and hope she landed somewhere soft. Or I could go after the one thing still poisoning her life from a distance. Not to fix her path. Just to clear it. I called the state trooper again. Gave him the license plate, asked him to dig deeper this time. What are you looking for? He asked. Leverage, I said. Anything that'll keep this guy from crawling back into her life. An hour later, he called back. Derek had priors. Nothing that stuck, but enough to show a pattern. Minor assault. Trespassing. 2 dismissed charges for harassment. 1 sealed file from a juvenile home that the trooper couldn't access. He's bad news, he said. But he knows how to stay just barely legal. I asked him how to file a restraining order when the victim was gone. You can't, he said. Not unless she's involved. Best you can do is document everything. Stack the file. Make it so thick no one wants to touch him. That wasn't enough. Not anymore. I drove straight to the group home where Emma had been staying. I told them who I was. Showed ID. Mentioned the gas station incident, the threat, the bruises she hadn't bothered to hide. They gave me nothing. Said they couldn't discuss minors. Said she wasn't under their roof anymore. When I pushed harder, they threatened to call security. Fine. I went back to my truck and called a woman I hadn't spoken to in 2 years, Jamie, my old sponsor. I told her everything. Not because I needed to confess, but because I needed someone who'd remind me why rage doesn't solve what absence created. She left because she doesn't trust anyone to stay, Jamie said. She trusted you just enough to leave on her own terms. That's not failure, David. That's a crack in the armor. It doesn't feel like a crack, I said. It feels like she built the armor because of me. Then stop being the reason she keeps it on. I didn't respond. I just sat there, the phone hot against my ear. If you want her to believe in something real, she said, do something real. Not loud. Not big. Just honest. That night, I sat at the shop's desk and wrote a statement. A full account of everything Emma told me. What Derek said. What she described. I listed dates, names, places. I printed it, signed it, attached the photo from the gas station camera that the manager had reluctantly handed over when I asked 2 days earlier. I put it all in an envelope and dropped it off at the sheriff's office with no return address. Then I went back to the garage and did something I hadn't done in over a decade. I pulled the crate from under my bed. The one with old photos, cards I never mailed, a folded drawing Emma made when she was 3, just scribbles and the word Dad written sideways. I found a pen and a yellow legal pad. And I wrote. I wrote about the first time I held her, how I was too scared to admit I loved someone that much. I wrote about how I disappeared not because I didn't care, but because I did, and I thought caring wasn't enough without control. I told her I failed, that I still didn't know what being a father meant, that maybe it was more about showing up after the damage than never causing it in the first place. I didn't ask her to forgive me. I just gave her the truth and left it unwrapped. 3 days passed, then 5, then a week. No message. I kept the door unlocked anyway. I opened the shop every morning, took jobs I didn't want, fixed things that weren't broken just to keep my hands busy. I stopped expecting the phone to ring. I started writing again instead. Letters I didn't send. Pages I didn't file. Each one less about what I'd lost, more about what I refused to lose again. And then one night, just past midnight, I heard the bell over the front door. I didn't move when I heard the bell. Just sat at the back desk with grease on my sleeves and ink on my hands, unsure if the sound was real or imagined. The shop door rarely opened that late, never after dark unless someone was desperate. For a second, I thought it might be another stranger in trouble. But when I stood and stepped into the light, it wasn't a stranger at all. Emma stood just inside the threshold, the same hoodie pulled low over her face, but it didn't hide the exhaustion in her posture. Her shoes were wet. Her fingers were clenched around the strap of the duffel bag that hadn't left her side. She didn't say anything, didn't step further in, just waited for me to break the moment. You walked here. She shrugged. Bus took me halfway. I figured you still kept the door unlocked. I nodded. I did. I didn't come back for a speech. I'm not giving one. Her shoulders eased, barely. I motioned toward the cot. She didn't sit, but she walked past me into the office like it hadn't been a week since she'd vanished. I watched her scan the space, maybe looking for what had changed. The feather necklace she'd left behind was sitting in the middle of the desk. She picked it up, turned it over once in her hand, then slipped it into her pocket. You still have the phone? I asked. She pulled it from her bag and tossed it onto the desk like a challenge. Didn't break it. I didn't track you. I know. There was a long pause. The kind that could have broken us if either of us had been weaker. But she was the one who spoke first this time. I stayed with a woman Mom used to know. She runs a drop-in for girls who've aged out of the system. Slept on a couch next to a radiator that clicks all night. No one asked questions. No one touched me. That's good. It was enough. Another pause. Did you go after him? She asked, still not looking at me. I gave them what I had. Witnesses. Statements. That gas station camera. He's on record now. Enough to flag him if he gets too close. Won't stop him. No. But it'll slow him. She let that sit. Then finally turned to face me, arms crossed, like she needed something to hold. I wasn't trying to hurt you by leaving. I know. I just needed to decide something without you standing there ready to catch it. You deserve that. She exhaled slowly. I used the money. Not all of it. Some's in my sock. You don't have to explain. I know. She finally sat, cross-legged, elbows on her knees, eyes sharp even through the exhaustion. I didn't come back to stay. Not really. I just didn't want you to wonder if I made it. I nodded. I did anyway. She looked at me like she wanted to ask something but didn't trust the answer yet. Why now? I asked. Why come back tonight? She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She passed it across the desk. It was one of the letters I'd written while she was gone. The first one. The one I never sent. Somehow she had it. I came back to ask if you meant it. I meant every word. She studied my face like she was trying to find the lie. When she didn't, she leaned back against the wall, her voice quieter now. Do you still think I'm something to fix? No, I said. I think you're something I broke. And you're the one who figured out how to keep going anyway. She didn't smile, didn't cry. But her body uncoiled just slightly. I don't know what comes next, she said. You don't have to. You're not going to try and turn this into a new beginning? No. Why not? Because you never owed me closure, I said. That's mine to carry. She stood, slung her bag over her shoulder, and looked toward the door. I thought she was leaving again. But she stopped beside me and reached into her jacket. Handed me a photo. Crumpled. Worn. It was her and her mother, sitting on a park bench, a balloon tied to Emma's wrist. They were both looking off camera. She tapped the corner. Mom always said I had your stubbornness. I folded the photo carefully, then looked at her. That's probably the only good thing I ever gave you. She considered that for a second. Maybe. But I'm keeping it. She stepped out into the dark, wind brushing through the open door. Then she turned, just once, and said, some things don't need fixing. It just needs someone to stand still long enough to be found. The door closed behind her. And that was the last thing she ever said to me in person. But the next week, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside was a postcard from a city I'd never been to. On the back, just 5 words. Still here. Still choosing. E. I pinned it to the shop wall, just above the feather necklace. Some wounds never heal. But they teach us who we are.